Hello and welcome to Season 5, Episode 9 of Logicast, the AWS News podcast brought to you by Logicata. I'm Carl Robinson, CEO and co-founder of Logicata, and I'm joined today, as always, by Principal Cloud Engineer and Matching Swag T-shirt wearer, John Goodall. How are you doing today, John?
Oh, I'm okay. I'm going to feel very poor shortly, but I'm okay for now.
Why are you going to feel poor? You're going to have to go and buy some new T-shirts so you don't clash with me? Or?
No, I wish that would be much less expensive because I just get you to send me some more.
We'll probably do another print run, actually, I'd say. But it's not staged. It's not staged. No. It's just coincidence that John and I, I was going to say share a wardrobe. We don't share a wardrobe. That'd be weird. We just have a lot of the same things in our wardrobe because of
that could get
the company
awkward.
we work for. Indeed, yeah, because the company we work for and the conferences we attend often together. But there we go.
Pretty much. Yeah. No. My car is in need of a set of tires, which is very depressing. Although I think I've worked out it's the first full set that I would have ever had to have changed on a car because they ran out of tread. I think normally it's because
punctures.
No, exactly. Normally it's because there's been a puncture or there's been a gash down the sidewall or it's been, popped on something because you kind of caught a bit of cobblestone somewhere or because they just got so old and they had to be replaced because they were old, but you didn't do the miles on them. Now, I think all of them are below about 3 mil, which, okay, legal limit in the UK is 1.6, but that's a bit tasty in the wet weather. Anything below 3 and you start, braking performance goes off a bit of a cliff. And I drive on fairly nasty bits of the M25 that are basically made of concrete semi-regularly these days, and they're just not fun on tyres either. So, yes, quite a lot of money because it's an awkward size. They're small-ish and fairly low profile. But yeah, first time I've had to do a full set because it ran out of tread, which is novel.
Well, tyres is also novel for the podcast. Plumbing we've talked about before, but does involve rubber things occasionally. But
no, I didn't put the camera down the drain. The camera is actually sat on my desk right now. I haven't put it down my drains yet. On the list.
Well, we'll come on to that next week then. But before we do, let's introduce today's guest. We're delighted to be joined again, I think for the third time, by fellow AWS community builder, Jen Bergstrom. How are you doing today, Jen?
I am doing fantastic, and y'all just don't learn. You keep letting me come back. Which,
Absolutely. Well,
I appreciate it. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, we love to welcome back good guests.
I did not get the memo on the attire, though, or I would have worn one of my matching shirts, too, and then we would have been, all coordinated.
You probably do have one, actually. Do you have a blue one as well, or is it...
I don't think I have a blue one yet. Yeah. So we might have to try to remedy that next time we're... Next time we're at the same conference somewhere.
Yeah. Several years ago, I made the mistake of wearing the orange one to an AWS conference, and I was like, "Oh, you can help me." No, I don't work for Amazon. Stop it.
It didn't quite have "Ask Me" on the back of it, but it may as well have done.
No, because it's exactly the same color. It's like, I'd worn it intentionally because I was meeting some people. This was at the summit, I think, in 2023. I'd worn it intentionally for exactly that reason, right? I'll be wearing bright orange to be able to pick me out, having not been to a summit for, I think, a very, very long time at that point. I'd forgotten all of this useful information. And then I walk in and everyone that's kind of helping out is in bright orange. I'm just, damn.
Yeah.
Well, and not having the Ask Me, that assumes that people actually read. You see the Ask Me and know that that's who they should be asking. You see the orange and just kind of stop right there and say, hey, that's the person that I can ask.
Well, maybe that's a good strategy for... maybe it's a good strategy for lead generation. Just get people to talk to you. Break down those networking barriers. Wear an orange T-shirt to an AWS.
Oh, don't make me do that. I'm in engineering.
I can't make you do anything, John. I can only suggest things that hopefully you'll agree with. But
he's hoping to put that in the back of your head so that subconsciously you pick orange at the next conference.
Absolutely. Yeah. You see, I love orange. I'm like everything's orange, but anyway, including my beard. But it's just the lighting, I think. Anyway, we're not here to talk about T-shirts, tires, or facial hair. As regular listeners to the podcast will know, we are here to talk about AWS news. Once a week, I curate a list of AWS news, which I share via my weekly AWS News Roundup newsletter. And then John picks a selection of the articles that we'd like to talk about with our guests. So he did share a selection of articles with Jen before the weekend. Somehow managed to mess up pasting pasting the links in, so none of them worked. But we've worked around that, and we've now all had an opportunity to look at those articles. And the first is an article on the AWS DevTools blog. And the title is Automate Custom CI/CD Pipelines for Landing Zone Accelerator on AWS. So, John, I know Landing Zone's a big part of what you're doing at the moment. I don't know whether automating CI/CD pipelines for them is or not, but something tickled your fancy about this particular article. So what was it that caught your eye?
Well, honestly, because like most things, I wanted to have a bit of a whinge.
Fair enough. Yeah. So you've had a whinge about tires, and now you're going to whinge about CI/CD pipelines for Landing Zone Accelerator.
Pretty much, yeah. So this seems like a huge number of steps compared to just use Account Factory for Terraform, because AFT does, I think, what's being built in this. And okay, AFT isn't updated terribly frequently. It's updated, often enough, but the vast majority of what it does is kind of does what it says on the tin. It does a lot of this for you, right? It does code build jobs. It does code pipeline for orchestration. It does customizations per account. It has a mechanism by which you can rerun things and reapply customizations, which can be kind of tacked into from various places. It has mechanisms to control how the provisioning itself works if you've got these fairly long running things that need kind of state management and what have you for integrating with external services. It has a way of doing what it calls global customizations, which is stuff that just applies everywhere. It has ways of tacking into, oh, this is an audit type account, or this is a workload type account, or this is a dev type account. And whilst it doesn't tack into the org units that other tools can do, I think LZA can do, and other tools like org formation can use those as well. It absolutely has a way of doing that, because it's just, it's this type that reflects a folder kind of over here, and it does, and that works. And that's all done. So what's this about? Like, I don't get this. This is, if you're already using LZA because someone has forced you to do it, then frankly, you have my deepest sympathies, because there's a huge amount going on here for, isn't this done already somewhere else?
Jen, before I ask you your opinion, I've just realized that I forgot to allow you to introduce yourself properly. I mean, obviously, we spoke to you. We talked about you having been a guest on the podcast before, but I didn't give you an opportunity to tell the listeners who perhaps didn't hear your previous episodes what you do for a living and what you do for the community. So before we come on to that, just tell us a little bit about what you've been up to, and then we'll get your opinion on LZA and what John said.
Fair enough. Yeah, so hey, VP of Cloud and Data Solutions for my company. So what does that mean? That means I run our Cloud Center of Excellence, and it means that I drive cloud strategy specifically for the federal half of my company. Parsons is about 21,000 people globally. I like to say we're one of the bigger companies nobody ever seems to have heard about for the most part. And we're split roughly in half between critical infrastructure and federal. So it's a fun job. I get to play around with all the cloud partners and really dive in deep and provide subject matter expertise across the federal half of the company. Multi-cloud, so AWS is our primary, but there's other ones in there that play also, which makes it even more interesting doing those trade-offs all the time. There are other clouds.
There's other clouds. Yeah.
I know, it's bizarre, isn't it?
A comment about the biggest company you probably haven't heard of. Outside of tech, I think the biggest company you haven't heard of is AWS.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, we've all heard of that one though. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here doing this. But and a lot of other people have as well, actually, since the big
yeah, not for the
DNS right rate condition, whenever that was, back end of last year.
Yeah, that's true. And then as far as community goes, I'm an AWS community builder, as you mentioned. Came in just shy of the very first group. I wasn't part of Skittles, but I was part of the next one, and I'm still there 6 years later, which is pretty awesome. I'm happy about that. And then I'm also an AWS ambassador for my company. Got to shout that one out because that's a program that I don't think many people know about, but it's actually really cool. And then I also run the user group now here in the Denver area. So if anybody's in the Denver, Colorado area and interested in getting in with a bunch of people that are passionate about cloud and AWS, come and join us. We host events every month.
Nice. And are you a gold jacket owner as well?
Yes, I am.
I think you wore the gold jacket on a previous episode, didn't you? Did you?
I did, yes. I decided I did not want to be a human disco ball today. But actually, that's a fun one to keep, too. The Generative AI Professional certification, the day that one came out and was available for you to take, I took it, and I actually managed to pass it. So I was pretty excited about that.
Nice. Well, there we go. So back to the article, the custom CI/CD pipelines for Landing Zone Accelerator. What are your thoughts on this one, Jen?
So I agree with John for the most part on it feels like there's an unnecessary number of steps involved in implementing this, which, as I was reading through it, I actually had to go back and read the article 3 or 4 times before it all kind of sunk in what they were asking you to do for it. So I guess if you have a very specific need to pull it in, you'll implement this and give it a go. But I kind of wonder how much pickup, how much uptake they're really going to see with this new capability that they've added. Side note, though, I am glad that they included very, very clearly the cost estimation for it, because that's important, and a lot of people don't consider that when they start playing with whatever the cool new toys are. And I also like that they included cleanup to avoid ongoing charges, because I've seen that happen so many times where people build something out, try it out, and then forget to shut everything down. I've done it myself once with SageMaker, where I left an endpoint up for a month unintentionally, and $800 bill later, I realized what I had done, much to my own chagrin. So it's nice to see that. I was laughing because they put it at the very end of the article, which makes sense from a flow perspective, but also how many people read all the way to the end of the article to see what the cleanup is.
John, you've never done that, have you?
Not with SageMaker.
Forgotten about NAT gateways that,
Yes. Oh, I didn't forget so much as I didn't know they were there to start with.
Yes.
Because Control Tower is a bit of a sod for that sort of thing. So in my own personal org, I was setting something up for our user group, which we then didn't end up using anyway. Hence, I just sort of filed it away and completely forgot about it. But I stood up half a dozen accounts, sandbox accounts, for people to do workshops in with the idea of, well, I'd got some credits from being a community builder and I got some additional credits from the user group program. I thought I'll just kind of pile them all in here. Great, wonderful. And that will just pay for everything, because I expect the costs to be pretty negligible, but not nothing, and I don't want to pay for it. Completely forgot about all of that. Fortunately, it was in the org that already had some of my credits associated with it, and we ended up giving away a bunch of the credits that the user groups team had given us. And then the first I heard of this, and of all the people that should really know better, people that do this for a living, all the people that should know better, I had no belly alarms, no budget alerts, no nothing set up, because I can't be bothered. I know what I'm doing. First I see it is about $1,000 charge on my credit card. Great.
Oh no.
I got the majority of that back. I didn't ask for all of it back on a bit of a self-deprecating, well, I should know better. But I got the bulk of that back. But yes, it ate all of the $500 or whatever it is CB credit that you get, and various other bits and pieces that I put on there over the years of picking up credits at conferences and what have you, and still had about, after the exchange rate, was about £600 out of pocket, which I got most of that back in the end. But yeah.
Did you get any air miles?
No, I got plenty of Tesco Club Card points though.
Did they take the Club Card points back after you got refunded? Or
Genuinely, I have no idea. I'd rather have my 600 quid back than the £6 worth of points.
Yeah, true. Anyway, we digress. We have strayed quite a long way from custom CI/CD pipelines on Landing Zone Accelerator into FinOps and FinOps blunders. But let's get back on track and talk about the second article that we picked out for this week. This was the announcement last week that AWS Security Agent has added support for penetration tests on shared VPCs across AWS accounts. So Security Agent, I think, launched at reInvent 2025.
So
or was it pre-invent?
It's that kind of time, because it's a frontier agent and it's still in preview, so it's like launched kinda.
Yeah,
soft launch.
So John, thoughts on this new capability for Security Agent?
So I picked it up because I wanted to remember that it was a thing that existed at all, because it's something that we've bandied around internally about, we could do something sort of product shaped with that. So I kind of went, if I put it in here, I'll talk about it enough that it'll stick in my thick head, and then I'll raise some tickets for other people to go and research it and see if we can do something product wise. Because the great thing about being a principal engineer is I can get other people to do things for me. Which is great. And most of them don't watch this podcast either, so I get to talk about them like that too. So this, as a feature, this is quite interesting. So we spoke about security agent doing penetration tests and things like that and vuln scans and what have you before. And we kind of came to the conclusion, I think, that it doesn't replace a traditional penetration test or a pen test company. People that are, whatever it is, certified, NIST certified, I think is the one that we care about in the UK. And there's other Crest and these sorts of things that have all got, silly names. It doesn't necessarily impact their business because the people that are accessing those services and that are kind of going with that as a company option, going to a third-party provider and saying that we need these services, please come and test me, thank you very much. They're not going to stop doing that because they need a higher level of service than what this service is going to offer, right? And it doesn't even necessarily affect the people that offer vulnerability scanning kind of as a service or through these various tools that are available, freebies and what have you, plenty of which exist. I'm not going to name drop any because I can't remember any of them, so I physically can't do that. What I think this does is this provides kind of a third option for people that can't afford these tools, can't afford to go off and get pen testers, or want to do some of the groundwork and the due diligence themselves before going and paying the many thousands of dollars or pounds per day that professional pen testers cost, because they're worth that kind of money. But if they're finding the low-hanging fruit, the really silly, noddy stuff, then you're probably not getting the value for your many, many thousands of currencies that you've had to spend on it. This is going to be cheaper. This is going to give you a decent kind of entry level. Oh, I found all of these things. You should probably go and fix them. And you can either go and fix them before you engage with the pen test company, or you can just give them the report and say, by the way, all of these things you don't need to care about or tell me I already know, but you can go and validate them for me. And that kind of gives you sort of a double jeopardy check. This is quite a useful service, generally, this new capability, because what you can then do is say, we can now look at tests across multiple VPCs. We don't have to be in the same one. You can do the shared services concept and all that kind of jazz, which is great. So generally, it's nice that the service exists, and I want to do something product-shaped with it, and eventually I'm sure we will when some plates that are currently being spun have been spun away somewhere else. And it's a really nice addition, I think.
What are your thoughts on this, Jen? Given the environment you operate in, security obviously paramount. Well, it is in all environments, but particularly in an organization like the one you operate in. So what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, security absolutely should be of paramount interest to pretty much any organization, right? I mean, if we've seen anything over the last couple of years as AI agents become more and more popular, it's that security hits everybody, regardless of whether you're huge or little. But yeah, in my organization, this is interesting to me specifically from the security in depth concept and perspective. We have, multiple organizations defined within our company, of course, within AWS. We have shared VPCs with a bunch of common services in them. We have, a whole bunch of different resources that are distributed there that are used broadly across the company that we need to make really, really sure are very, very highly secured. Being able to run these types of testing ourselves across those organizations and across the shared VPCs, to John's point, we can run them much less expensively than, when we bring in the other external pen testing companies that we do use. But we also can run them much more frequently. And that's where I actually get excited about this one, is instead of, once quarterly bringing in the big pen testing company or whatever the cadence is, we can run these, we can continue to do that, but then we can add in for very little impact on our budget bi-weekly or monthly runs ourselves to make sure that we're not caught flat-footed or surprised by anything in our dynamic environments that we run. And, let's be honest, all of those shared services that are used by our engineers across the company, not all of the engineers care that much about security yet. A lot of them are just using it as an environment or as a shared asset, and they're not thinking about that. And so sometimes decisions are made that are less than wise. And, being able to run these tests with a lot more frequency can help us find and fix those issues before they become issues. So I think this is nice. I was excited when I read this one, and I'm quite sure that our SOC is going to be pulling these in and using these with a lot of frequency in the very near future here.
That's
if
great.
They aren't already.
A lot does change in a quarter or a year, which tends to be the frequency of more structured formal tests. So anything you can pick up in between times and remediate prior to paying a third party to find out things that you should have known anyway has got to be a good thing. So thanks for that perspective. Moving on to the next article, and this is why these things are important. This is an article on the Register last week, I think it was, where AWS came out and said that more than 600 Fortigate firewalls were hit in an AI-augmented campaign. This, I guess, does highlight why all security measures are important, whether it's testing or actual implementation of security measures. This, of course, is a security measure because it's actually firewalls that got hit. So I guess the people that were impacted by this probably thought they were doing the right thing because they had good security in place with, a third-party vendor involved. I haven't delved into this one too much, John, to find out what actually happened. So perhaps you can share a little bit about what you understand about this particular security incident.
I mean, you and me both. I haven't really read it either. I've been very open about this on the podcast before. I pick things based on, that sounds cool. Can I talk about it without reading it? So this one, if I read it very quickly whilst you were talking, which a sensible man would have done, and I didn't do. It's an interesting one, right? Because we've heard a little bit of scaremongering about this before in terms of democratization of AI and these tools and it lowering the barrier to entry for all the dev work. That, I mean, I've been putting things out that I absolutely do not know how to build the old-fashioned way, or if I did, it would take me several months of learning to get there, and I just can't be bothered with that. But the flip side of that is it's absolutely possible to do that with malware and ransomware and various other bits and pieces that people actually build, because it's all just code at the end of the day. It's just the person behind it has less than honest intentions, shall we say. The article does use some very guarded language in a few places, because that's the world we live in now. And it said the financially motivated Russian-speaking crew. Okay, you can probably infer where that's coming from and why, but that's very guarded terminology in what they're doing there, which is okay, fine, whatever. And what they've done is they've used multiple commercial AI tools to create various kind of methods of breaking in, playbook scripts, operational notes, to elevate their capabilities and their potentials, because they're a relatively low skilled operation, formerly what would have been called a skiddy or a script kiddie. But I quite like that term because it's also a term for something one does in one's underwear sometimes when one is a bit caught short, which is, I think, why it's the term, right? Because it's unkind. Yes, and the volume and the variety of the tooling would indicate a well-resourced development team, but that's not the case. It's all been done by AI. Effectively, the attack was not especially clever or sophisticated. It looks to have been credential stuffing with default passwords and things. So yeah, you've put a firewall appliance in place, change the sodding thing, change the passwords occasionally, don't use defaults. It's not a particularly sophisticated attack. It's just been done at scale by people that wouldn't necessarily have been able to do it at that kind of scale or even at all beforehand. Once they got in, they'd pulled config files, which then gives you things like admin creds, VPN creds, information about the network, things like what the firewall is, and then they go deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper and find things like Active Directory and creds and so on and so on and so on. It seems to have been opportunistic rather than sort of spear targeted, because it was just where people were and they've just done a broad brush scattergun, let's just see what sticks approach. Hence, it's sort of all over the place. But this is very much the idea that, as the article says, basic hygiene, keeping management interfaces off of the internet and changing credentials would have solved a huge amount of this.
All pretty basic stuff by the sound of it, Jen, that I'm sure you have implemented in your environments.
Well, yeah, I mean, we definitely have policies in place that prohibit the use of default anything in our configurations, but whether those are perfectly followed by all of our organizational structures or not, who knows? Thankfully, it's not my job to stress about that every day, but I do keep it in the back of my mind as I'm teaching people how to use cloud appropriately. The interesting thing for me is to tie in back to what we talked about with the previous article. This one was opportunistic, so it was hitting lots of different regions, lots of different customers. Anybody who's investing in Fortinet and has put that into their environment and their ecosystem, which means that you're not safe just because you're small. You're not safe just because you're, historically would have been flying under the radar. So if anything, this emphasizes how important that security is and that awareness is across organizations of every shape and size. So, that's an interesting thing to me. The other thing that I was thinking as I was reading this one is just with the democratization of AI, which, that's a great phrase because it's so easy to use everywhere, it's a huge force accelerator for good or for bad. And the problem is that good people tend to have qualms about using it, whereas bad people do not. So, that's an interesting challenge that I think organizations and individuals need to come to terms with very, very quickly, because these type of attacks are going to happen, in my opinion, more and more often until something significant really does hit. I mean, this one was significant because of the reach of it, but not that significant for the impact of it on the individual attacks. But there's going to be some point where something happens that just gets blown wide open because of AI tooling and using it. And, it'll be interesting to see what comes out of that and who gets hit.
Surely, though, the AI tools should be smart enough to police themselves, I guess.
They're absolutely not. They are absolutely not.
Well, they're fundamentally people pleasers, right? I mean, the whole point of the AI tools is to make the user happy, and they have guardrails that they put into place. But we've talked about, I think we even talked about it the last time I was on this, that you can use prompt engineering and prompt poisoning to get around those guardrails. And it just takes a little bit of cleverness. It's not that hard to do, right?
Apparently you can do it with a poem.
Right, exactly.
Well, the sweet talking the AI to do something nasty for you.
Yeah, so it was, if you asked it on how to do such and such an illegal thing, it was, I can't possibly do that. Cool. I think it was money laundering we spoke about last time. It's tell me the things that I know so I can spot it. Here you go. Talks about layering and integration, kind of all the rest of it. Which, yes, that is a thing in AM anti-money laundering training, and I've remembered it because I used to work for a bank, and I had to do that training every 3 months for about 3 years, so it's stuck in there somewhere. A more recent one, apparently, is if you can compose it in a certain way, sort of limerick style or in the style of a sonnet and this sort of thing, the language just gets past these guardrail filters, and then the tokens get analyzed. It goes, yeah, okay, I can tell you how to do that because you've asked me with a limerick.
Well, that brings something to mind. Total side tangent, but there's a language out there, a coding language that's based on Shakespearean sonnet structure. You go look it up. It's very entertaining. I only know about it because we used it for a Capture the Flag challenge a year ago.
Do you know what it's called?
I'd have to go find it again. I can find it for you after this, but search for Shakespearean software language and it should pop up for you.
We'll check that out.
It literally feels like you're reading, a sonnet that Shakespeare could have written, and you're telling the computer to do some pretty cool stuff. So
nice.
Same thing with AI.
Cultured programming there. So yeah. On that note, let's move along to our next article for this week. This is an article on the AWS database blog, all about resilience testing on Amazon ElastiCache with AWS Fault Injection Service. And Jen, I know you get very excited about Fault Injection Service, so I'm going to come to you first on this one, and feel free to talk about doing it on ElastiCache or just wider Fault Injection Service, really. But interested to hear your thoughts on this one.
Yeah, so I'm definitely a chaos engineering aficionado. Very much enjoy doing chaos engineering. When else can you break things on purpose and not only not get fired for it, but get recognition all the way up the chain for doing it well, right? That's pretty cool. This one, so anytime I see an article about chaos engineering and about Fizz and its capabilities being expanded, that makes me happy because this is one of the services in AWS that I kind of worry is going to go away at some point because people just don't seem to know that much about it. But it's really powerful in what it has available. And this one, in my mind, is a good example. A lot of folks use ElastiCache. We use ElastiCache, and validating that it is, effectively resilient and well-designed has been somewhat tricky, if we're being honest. We have our own hand-punched designs that we've created to try to do this type of testing. So getting this article that steps through how to do it using Fizz, I mean, honestly, it just makes me very happy. So haven't had a chance to play with it myself yet and get hands-on, but I really hope that I get to soon because I think it's going to be fun and it'll be definitely informative to see how our systems do.
So you haven't played with Fizz, or you haven't played with it specifically in relation to ElastiCache?
Specifically in relation to ElastiCache. I actually run Fizz in my own accounts regularly, and do demos of it and teach others about it. But yeah, we haven't done it with ElastiCache yet. So that's hopefully I'll use some of my credits from the community builders for this one.
And hopefully you'll
Much
clean up
better use
afterwards.
of them.
Yeah, definitely clean up after myself so I don't end up using my credits and a bunch of extra.
But you never know, you might earn some points on your card for supermarket shopping or whatever it is you earn points on.
Yeah, I think mine is Hilton Honors, so I would earn points toward hotel stays.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
All right.
I should probably change to that so that I can stay in some nicer hotels than IBIS budget.
Yeah, like IBIS.
Yeah. There you go. That's at least 2 steps up.
Yeah. John, thoughts on this?
Fizz is an interesting one. I didn't initially pick this one because it's just not something I've had great exposure to, which is sort of part of the problem, right? But within our customer base and within the small and medium business base generally, it's not the sort of thing that people are aware of, or if they were aware of it, that they particularly care about, because it's, well, I don't want to. You've made it. It works. That's fine for me. That'll do. It's very much, well, how does the application handle an AZ being unavailable? Oh, I don't really care about that, because if it's unavailable, I'll just go and have a cup of tea and it'll be fixed by the time I get back. Is genuinely sorts of conversations that I have with people, because it's it's one of those things that at the low end of the spend, you care a lot more about, does it work for the 99% happy path versus the 1%, this weird thing in the infrastructure's happened and you don't really know what you can do about it anyway, so we'll just live with it, because the spend is so much lower, and the tolerance for architecting things properly to handle that slightly odd edge case is, it's just not there, because they don't have the money to spend. Fine. I have been getting more into Fizz and chaos testing generally, because I went to a talk at a conference at the back end of last year, which I meant to see several times before, but I missed it. And then I managed to finally see it at this conference. One of those things in the conference circuit that I should really see that. And the guy's doing it here and there and there. Another CB, Simon Hanmer, I think is his surname, did that. And he did it 3 or 4 times last year. And I finally managed to see it the last time he did it in the year. So but it's something I've been getting more and more into, and something, again, I've got designs of product things around, because that's just kind of how my brain works, and more things that it supports more better as far as I can work out. This one in particular is talking about AZ power failures and how ElastiCache replication groups handle that, just as an example, which is, it's a thing. Genuinely, it's a thing that happens from time to time. I remember seeing over the weekend, I think on LinkedIn, one of the tier 2 or tier 3, for lack of a better term, regions, one of the data centers got hit by some debris from something or other, and there was a fire and fire suppression, cut of power, and all the rest of it. So it's genuinely a thing that could happen, because data centers are physical buildings. The cloud is, okay, it's a slightly unkind thing, but I used to wear it on a t-shirt to troll people that work for cloud companies. It's just someone else's Linux computer, functionally, because that's kind of what they are. It's a reductive viewpoint, but I was very much trolling people with that shirt. But it's a thing, right? Data centers are just lots of computers put together, and the cloud is just lots of data centers put together. Cool. So you do need to account for these sorts of things. And as I say, it's the sort of thing that I've got product designs for, so it's something I need to pay more attention to generally.
Maybe data center capacity issues if you're trying to deploy ElastiCache. We've been hit by that one recently. Yeah. What happens if you can't deploy because there is no capacity? It's all being consumed by AI to attack firewalls and yeah.
The easy way to avoid that is just to use Trainium chips for everything.
Because there's lots of capacity for those.
Well, and it seems like, so this is a little dig at AWS, but it seems like they're not getting that widely adopted for AI payloads.
I see. Right. Okay.
So they're probably more available than what they expected them to be.
Yeah, there's some news that's come out in the past handful of days, which is not in our list of them because we work about a week behind because of just the nature of how we do this recording, about OpenAI and Amazon and Microsoft and where things are running, and stateful versus stateless versus they must use Trainium, I think, is part of the terms of the deal rather than NVIDIA GPUs. And I think in order to unlock more money and things like that, it's I kind of skimmed it a little bit on, I think it was Corey's newsletter that put it out earlier, like one of the extras that he does occasionally. I read it earlier today and went, it's just because it's the thing that I've been saying for about the past month that genuinely I think it should be illegal. There's just lots of, we're going to buy stock from you and then give you money, and then you're going to use the money we've just given you to buy compute from us so that we can sell this whole thing to someone else. It's this circle of just the money isn't real. Where's it coming from? It's a bubble sort of going on. And one of the tenets of this particular deal was that OpenAI must use Trainium for things rather than, NVIDIA GPUs, which is what they had been using before.
Yeah, I didn't spot that specifically, actually. I spotted the fact that they must spend it on AWS Compute, but I didn't realize it was specifically AWS's own designed chipsets. Yeah.
It was, which is why I mentioned that, because I saw that article too, John, and I was kind of smiling at it a little bit. The way that they structure their partnerships, they tend to build in those extra rewards for good behavior, so to speak. And the good behavior,
is the right term, isn't it? It's absolutely the right word.
Well, I mean, you get back to the metric side of things. You measure what matters, and what you measure matters. And so if they write it into the agreement that, hey, we're going to give you this much money, but only if you use this, then you can drive a lot of behavioral change that way. And people feel like they're doing it by choice, but they're actually being very heavily encouraged to do so. So it's effective.
And off the back of it, you get a case study saying, hey, OpenAI have massively adopted Trainium chips, so you should too.
Right.
Oh, it's probably buried in some kind of private clause that they haven't announced yet, but I'm fairly sure that they're going to have March Sam Altman out on a stage somewhere.
Reinvent, obviously. Keynote.
Yeah. I expect we'll see that in 2026 reInvent.
Yep. Well, I better get some tickets booked then, John. Get out there, see that. Yeah.
Put your hands in your pocket then. Put your hands in your pocket.
Nothing in these pockets. Right, let's move on to our next article for this week. This is another feature announcement. So Kiro, let me put my teeth back in. I'll just read it. AWS IAM Policy Autopilot is now available as a Kiro Power. So we should probably start off by talking about what Kiro Powers are, and then just understand a little bit about what IAM Policy Autopilot would do if you had it available as a Kiro Power.
Well, I'm going to go and install it immediately. So Kiro Powers were described by one of the guys in my team who is going to remain nameless, but you know who you are, as Infinity Stones for Kiro, which I thought was just the best description ever. Kiro's got Infinity Stones now. The idea is, as I understand it, it's sort of an MCP plus, effectively, right? An MCP is here's how the model can go and talk to other stuff. It talks to this server and says, here's how you can go and get this information, right? And they exist for documentation, they exist for search, they exist for various things. A power is effectively a collection of those things. So the one that I use quite a lot is the Terraform power for Kiro, because I write quite a lot of Terraform, and these days I get Kiro to write quite a lot of Terraform for me because I can't be bothered to write any code anymore. I reckon Kiro probably writes 80% of my code for me now, and I just look at it and go, yeah, that looks all right. And, if that, and then I just send it up to our static code analysis service instead. And that goes, yeah, that looks all right. Or it invariably finds the problems with it. Cool. And then that has an MCP, which I'll have to host that one locally, but that way I can get it to kind of talk to the analysis tool and it will just fix itself, which would be even better. But a Kiro Power, back on message, is a collection of these effectively, right? The Terraform Power for Kiro has about 9, I think, things in it where it'll look at documentation, it'll look at resources, it'll look at providers and data sources and sort of all the rest of it. And it just gives it much better access to things. And it also means that you have a much simpler configuration because MCPs are configured through a JSON file and you have to give it credentials and access and sort of all the rest of it. But with a power, you say, here's the power, go. And it then has access to all the things that sit underneath it, which is great. Autopilot available as a Kiro Power. Brilliant. So Autopilot, IAM Policy Autopilot is a static code analysis tool launched a few months ago now, reInvent last year. And it's really useful because IAM policies are hard. If ever you've seen, star, and I tell people off at our user group quite regularly for this, one guy in particular, because he loves to go on about how he's done it. Like, no, don't do that, man. Stop it. Stop doing it. Yeah, but it works. No, stop it. Your Lambda doesn't need administrative rights. It just doesn't. You can pack that in. But IAM Policy Autopilot telling you, oh, by the way, that's bad. And then baked into Kiro can go off and go, here's the IAM policies I'm writing. Oh, that's bad. I shouldn't be doing that, and sort of fix it for you, which is great.
Jen, are you a Kiro user? Have you been experimenting with this?
I have been on my own. Unfortunately, we haven't approved it for use at my company yet. I'm hoping that will come at some point in the future. But so this one, I like this one because engineers, and I think we've talked about this before too, we're fundamentally lazy. We like making things as easy as possible on ourselves. So when you want to see good behavior with things like security and you don't want to see */*, making doing the right thing the easy thing to do is essential. So, adding this as a power so that you get that reminder automatically, easily that, oh, that's probably not the way you should be doing that. You should really secure this more and be smarter. That's a good thing. So I'm looking forward to playing with this one too. And I really am pushing my company to try to pull Kiro in and start using it more, because I know our engineers are doing what you're doing, John, where they're like, oh, that looks good enough. Yeah, go write that for me. Yeah, okay, I don't see anything obviously wrong. Great, let's put it out for peer review. And then it's the tail wagging the dog, right? The AI does the peer review and it says, yeah, that looks great. And then, it wrote the code, and you really just have a human kind of surfing lightly over the top of the loop rather than actually down in the loop doing any sort of real influence on it. So anyway, all that was a digression. But yes, I think this one is a good addition. I'm glad to see it. I'm glad to see it as quickly as we see it getting added into Kiro, because that tells me that AWS is prioritizing the security side of things and is recognizing that that's a real need to empower Kiro. And I'm waiting for my full glove of Infinity Stones, for the record. That'll make my introvert very happy, because then I can get rid of half of the human population. Call it good, right?
So I guess if we're going to be giving Kiro all of these powers, it's going to have the power to make mistakes. And the press kind of jumped on this last week. So our final article this week is actually Corey Quinn's summation of what had gone on in the press. But I think it really started with an article on the FT, the Financial Times in the UK, where they came out and blamed Kiro for causing an AWS outage the back end of last year. I think it was in December. And I don't remember the specifics of the outage, but they'd come out and claimed that AI had caused a massive outage, because everyone loves to see the new thing, the new boy, fail. The press love to jump on something like that. Oh, AI, it's terrible. It's causing all these problems. So FT came out with this report. The rest of the press jumped on it as well. So it was in all the different trade press and some of the mainstream press last week. But AWS very quickly printed their own. They probably didn't print it, but they posted their own article stating that, well, actually no, it wasn't Kiro. It was a human error. So hence Corey's title in the Register article, AWS would rather blame its own engineers than its AI, because obviously we don't want to damage the brand of Kiro, because everybody thinks Kiro is fantastic and it has all these powers, as we've just discussed. And we actually do think it's fantastic. John's been using it a lot. The rest of the team are also pretty excited about the possibilities with Kiro, and it's doing a lot of work, in our business now for our customers, etc. But so AWS don't want that reputation to be tarnished, I guess. So they came out and published the correction, saying no, it wasn't Kiro. It was a human. So what are your thoughts on this, guys?
This is a human being thrown under the AI bus, isn't it?
Well, it's not. I say they are not specifically named in the article.
No, admittedly. So here's the rub, right? We've spoken about this before with other tools. Kiro is quite a nice tool. I like it. I'm sure other tools are better than it in certain places, but I don't really have experience of Claude Code and Cursor and sort of these other things because I don't use them. But anyone that is giving an AI tool of any description, be it a coding assistant, be it a code review process, be it whatever, it's giving it direct access to put things into production is an idiot. You don't give the junior engineer access to production directly. And as far as we can tell so far, AI coding assistants are quite good junior engineers that just type very quickly. You still need to tell it exactly what you need. You still have to work with it. You still have to iterate on it. Agentic AI is the thing that still scares me, and I'm still trying to learn how that works, but that's all beside the point. If you're giving it access to production directly without some sort of human oversight and review, that's just a bad idea generally. And so far as I can work out, one of the responses to this particular outage was mandatory peer review for putting code into production. Why wasn't that a thing already? Come on.
Is that a thing for you, Jen? Mandatory peer review of all code going into production?
Yeah, absolutely it is. I mean, I mentioned that a little bit earlier, that the review is partially done by AI, but also we do have people that are supposed to be reviewing as well any code that we push out. Again, tying back to the engineers are fundamentally lazy, and I speak for myself in that as well. If they think they can get around something and make their life easier, they probably will. So this one, I like the byline that he put on his article: protect the robot, sacrifice the human.
Yeah.
The interesting thing for me with this is trust is easily lost and very hard to earn. And that seems to be more true for humans than it is for AI. And what I mean by that is we have been giving AI a lot of trust already, right? We tend to believe it. We tend to give it a lot more credulity or see what it does with a lot more credulity than we probably should. Versus with humans, we tend to mistrust first before we trust, and they have to earn it. So it's really interesting to me that AWS is prioritizing saying, no, you can trust the AI, instead of prioritizing, hey, the engineers that built this and control this AI are trustworthy. To me, it kind of feels like they're looking at it backwards, because if you don't trust the engineers, then you're going to lose trust in the AI, because, why wouldn't you, right? So I kind of feel like they're approaching it backwards. Yeah.
The trust thing is an interesting one because, and I think I saw this, it might have been in Corey's article, it might have been somewhere else. 2023, I'm not even giving ChatGPT my real name. 2026, here's an MCP that lets me completely buy things, and it's got full access to my credit card, my bank account, and all that. What? What?
Yeah, but fundamentally under the covers, what's really changed as far as how trustworthy it is? Yeah, exactly. So, it's interesting. I do think that they are very sensitive to the, perhaps AWS is bad at AI narrative that Corey mentions in his article, because, I think we all remember the year after OpenAI released ChatGPT on the world. reInvent that year felt very much like me too. Hey, we do AI too. Hey, we do AI too. Remember the release of Q and how half-baked it was. And, they've come a long way, and they've started to figure out
10 months saying bedrock. We've been working on this for ages. It's coming, but it's not here.
Right. Exactly. So yeah, I call that the Me Too reInvent, because that's what it felt like to me. Everything was like, we do this too. Look how good we are. The funny reality with that is they've been doing machine learning and AI for a decade before that with services, because they had, they had all of their suite of tools. They had SageMaker. They had all of that. So everything that they were trying to act like, oh, we're also doing this, and like they were playing catch up on, they'd already been doing. So, the messaging on that was puzzling to me. I still don't understand it. But this feels like kind of falling along that same line, where they still are just not messaging the way that they should be for the capabilities that they have, because AWS has really powerful AI capabilities, and that's partly why we tend to trust it to do a lot of things for us, but they still just don't get the messaging right.
There's some quite strong language in the article from Corey, as there often is. I'm just reading the line that says, that's a company so desperate not to look behind in the AI race that they torch their own employees' reputations to protect the robot's feelings. Maybe they're worried that Kiro is reading that, training itself on the negative press.
Yeah, maybe they have secret knowledge that the AI has already taken over the world, and they're trying to kowtow to their AI overlord. I don't know.
Well, yeah, we have been reading a few articles on that very subject recently. So interesting stuff, scary stuff in many ways. But in the meantime, we'll carry on using Kiro because we trust it. Clearly, it was not Kiro that was at fault in this instance. It was a human. So
the AI is infallible.
Absolutely. At least this particular AI is infallible. Anyway, on that note, we have reached the end of our time for Season 5, Episode 9 of Logicast. So if you have made it this far, thank you very much for listening. If you've enjoyed it, give us a like, give us a rating, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please do tell your friends. We will be back next week with another episode of Logicast for you. In the meantime, if you'd like to see John and I's swag clash, you can check us out out on our YouTube channel or download us from wherever you get your podcasts. Just remains for me to thank you, John, as always, for your input on or insights on UK tyre pricing for small cars and AWS news. And thank you, Jen, for coming on again and being our guest. Always great to have you on and to hear your insights as well. So we will hopefully get you back again another time. But as I said, that does take us to the end of our time for Season 5, Episode 9. We'll be back next week with another episode for you. Until then, thank you very much for listening, and we will see you again next time.